All right. Can you say who you are and your company?
Yeah, my name's Jen Gavin, and I run a small business called Paradise Midi. And I make a lot of MIDI controllers like this one. Yeah, I have kind of a small catalog of controllers that I make multiples of, but whenever someone orders one, I have, 20 different colors of acrylic and different buttons, so, the design might be, the same shape, but I've never made the same controller twice,
Okay, wow.
And this is one of the newer ones that I've been working on that's it has these the LEDs that correspond to all the buttons that you press and the knobs and stuff, and I think the thing that I like the most about making them is I want to make things that make you want to play with them.
I mean, I definitely want to play that.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Obviously, there's a million MIDI controllers in the world, and you can find something with 400 buttons on it and whatever. But I love making something that you can be, someone who's been making music for your whole life, and exactly what you're doing, and this will still be functional and fun. And I tend to build in little secrets to it. So there'll be combinations of buttons that you can press that'll change the banks of things. Wow. So even though it only has 8 buttons and 4 knobs, you actually have 8 banks of sets of buttons and banks of sets of knobs, and hidden features that if you know what you're doing, you can access them. But at the same time, I also have friends with kids who are I want my kid to be a musician, and this is such a fun thing for them to play with, because at the end of the day, it's arcade buttons. A little kid can hammer on this all day long, and it's not going to break it or anything.
So do you do all these by yourself?
I do. I used to. When I got started, I didn't really have a lot of machines or tools to work with. Just had kind of the stuff you can get at Home Depot, but nothing particularly specialized. And I was doing a residency at the Adventure Science Center in Nashville, and they're amazing. They have been so helpful. But then COVID happened, and they couldn't exactly do that anymore. So I, about a year ago, just took a big plunge and spent all of my savings on a really nice laser cutter, a really nice CNC, and had some friends that were kind enough to let me build a soundproof insulated little chamber in their garage. So I have just a little mini shop that I cut all my controllers, and I do the sanding, and then laser cut all the acrylic, and then I take it home and I do all the programming and all the soldering, and each one of these takes so long.
So what would you use this one for?
Well, so what it's connected to right now is all of these pedals, and so it's going to actually a game. Okay. So we had someone from Teenage Engineering worked with Third Man to make, so they actually made a game that you send it a MIDI signal, and it manipulates video. So that's what it's doing with this mirror, is it's it's taking your MIDI signal from this controller, from this hand sanitizer, and everything that you send it, that's just it's regular MIDI, it's there's nothing special about the MIDI signal, but it's the input for this game that you can manipulate everything about the video. And I don't know, I kind of love that it's not exactly forthcoming with what it does. It's I've been sitting here all day, and I'm the most I figured out is this one changes the color.
Okay.
And I think this one makes it pixelated. But everything else is just okay, I have to hit this one 4 times for it to go back to normal. And so I feel the cool thing about MIDI controllers is that they're just so versatile. So I've made them for people a classic controller that's just a big grid of buttons that people use as a drum pad. But then I've also built big ones that people use as lighting boards. I have a friend who's a like a really incredible like lighting designer, and when he goes on tour, he has this like big controller that I made that he's like doing the lights, you know, from like back of house, and then I have one that's like just like one giant button, like it's a button that's like this big and it lights up, and like I heard from a friend that Skrillex owns one. Yeah, and I'm like, that's so wild because it's like it's a beat drop button, you know, like it's like a big red button that like you just want to like smash this button, and I like I heard from a friend who happened to be in his studio one time. I was like, hey, is this yours? And I was like, oh my god, yes, it totally is mine. So I love that like you can make them do anything.
That's great.
It's they're so much fun to build too, and like there's just like, you know, like this one, you know, this is like one of my favorite ones that's like kind of like the fanciest version, but I built MIDI controllers into like cardboard boxes, and made some that are in like tins for games, like that, like a card game that comes in like a fun shaped tin, like drilling holes in them and putting MIDI. I don't know. I have
So
one
do
that's
you
a
do
microwave.
custom?
Oh yeah. So I have like on my website is kind of the catalog of like my the designs that I'll like. You know, you can customize the designs and all the colors and stuff. But you know, my DMs and my email is like always open. I love to do like installation pieces, like this lightning bolt tower.
So good.
Thank you. And you know, I'm so excited now that like live music is coming back. Like my favorite thing is doing like stage pieces for, you know, it's like I want to make something that's like this is the only thing like it in the world. It's like my favorite.
I mean, it is clearly unique, honestly.
Thanks. Yeah.
So do you sell online? Do you have a shop?
I sell online. Yeah, it's, you know, I've thought about like how would I put this in a store? It's like, you know, it's kind of like the tug of war between like it would be cool to like have my things available in more places, but at the same time, putting something in a store means that like I've made all the decisions for what color it is and all of that, and I think people really get a kick out of being able to like okay, I want a purple controller, and I want the top row of buttons to be orange, and the bottom row I'm gonna alternate these colors.
That's
and
so cool.
you know, every time that I like get a new order, it's always interesting to be like, oh, I think this is what they were going for. And like, you know, someone like made one once that like looked exactly like the color combination looked exactly like an old a GameCube controller, like the purple one with the green and yellow buttons. And I was like, I would have never thought of that. But now there's this, you know, MIDI controller that looks like an old GameCube controller.
And what outputs does it have?
This one does USB MIDI and 5-pin MIDI.
Okay.
So it does both at the same time. So like right now, I think this is just plugged into power. And this is sending 5-pin to all these pedals. But if you plug it into a computer, it'll just send 5-pin to your computer as well. So yeah, there's like.
Showing me how it sounds with the pedals.
Oh sure. I think it's just not very loud. I don't know which one this is on. Oh, okay.
Oh my god.
So yeah, I mean, and like, you know, again, the cool thing with MIDI is that like you just plug it right in. Like if you have a Mac, you have GarageBand. You know, even if you don't have like Ableton or Logic or something fancy, like, you know, you plug one of these in, your computer like recognizes it immediately. There's no software you have to install, and you can just like click through the like hundreds of instruments and be like, you know, okay, now it's a trumpet, now it's a chorus. Like, it's, you know, it's even, you know, my background is very much like in engineering. I'm not, I don't like, you know, write music myself. So if I can figure out how to like have a fun time like tapping out a little song on this, like goodness knows a person who actually writes music can have a good time.
That's awesome. So is this connected to the pedals too?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that's routed. Let's see. I know it goes through like there's an interface down there that it's going through. Dan set this part up. Yeah, this was like a cool like critter and guitar-y controller that they made a while ago. Yeah, I love that it has like that little like built-in speaker. It's very fun to play with.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. It was fun to talk to you. I'm like trying to get my face to unblur. I don't think it's going to. It's like this forever now.
So have you found like other like cool uses for MIDI when you were like making it, like apart from like sound or visuals?
Oh yeah, I've used MIDI for a computer that I had that a couple of the keys stopped working.
Okay.
So I just like you can use MIDI as a trigger to like replace keystrokes.
Okay.
So I've done that. I've had like let's see. Yeah, like really like because MIDI is like a universal like a native like protocol for so many computers is like you can just use MIDI to trigger whatever. Like once like when you plug it into your computer, it's just like immediately recognized like, oh, new MIDI control. I'm trying to think of like weird stuff I've used MIDI to do. I mean, for lighting, it's really cool. Like I made a little controller once that was a MIDI to DMX converter. Actually, I've done this a couple times where you send it in a MIDI signal, and then it like processes with like you can program it to like to map different MIDI signals to DMX signals. So you can actually plug a controller like this into the little DMX box that I made, and then from the DMX box you can control like any lighting rigs that like use DMX. So that's been fun. That is one of the most complicated things that I've ever programmed. But it's really cool, and like I feel like a lot of that can feel so inaccessible. And like really like daunting to like get into the world of like even MIDI, but especially DMX is just like, oh, everything's really expensive and everything seems really complicated. It's so intimidating. But you make something that like feels so recognizable. Like, oh, I played an arcade game. Like I can play this. Like surely I can touch this and make something cool happen. And then same with like the DMX stuff. It's just like you can get a DMX controller like off the rack with like 10,000 different control options or whatever. And like for some people, like obviously there are like professional lighting people who need all of that. But for so many bands who are just like, I want to hit the road. I want my lights to look cool. I want it to be more than just like plug in a couple lamps or something. I just want like some simple way to like control a couple lights I got off eBay. And I'm like, I got you.
That's so cool.
It's like, making something like, simple and accessible and makes you like feel like I can play with this, like remove the barrier to entry for this whole world.
So what type of customers do you get the most reaching out to you, like musicians?
It's a lot of musicians. I love working with lighting people. I feel like there's just so much fewer of them. And I'm like, how do I get into your world, lighting people? But I mean, honestly, the thing that I think is interesting is like, I don't know a lot about the people that I get orders from. I used to do it all like 100% over Instagram DMs, and it was like
a mess.
That was so stressful. And so, at that point, I think I knew a lot more about like every individual person who I ordered from. I'm like, and this is their mom's name, and like, but now it's actually pretty fun. Like, people have no idea how small my business is. Like, I'll get emails or DMs sometimes of people who like clearly think they're talking to like the social media person of a company, and I'm like, I'm the only person of this company. But I think it's really fun. Sometimes I'll get an order that just like comes through my website, so all I know is the person's name. and I'll make the controller and ship it out.
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks later I'll get like tagged in a video, and I'll be like, oh my god, I had no idea. Like sometimes it's like someone with like a really clean like Gear Dad studio, and everything's like really nice. I'm like, oh wow, I'm so glad you think my controller is nice enough to fit in here. And then sometimes it'll be like a total like deadhead with like a patterned tablecloth and like incense and like little tchotchkes all over the place. And I'm like, I feel like I've learned so much about you from this video that you tagged me in. A lot of people are into chiptune, which makes sense. Like it looks like an arcade game.
It does.
Which I'm like, if one day I can get my controller in the hands of Anamanaguchi, I would just die.
That would be so
yeah,
fun.
there's been a few shows that I'm like, right before COVID started, Dan Deacon and Anamanaguchi both came through town, and I was like, oh, I have one. But I'm like, I can't talk to people.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that. It's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been like, I mean, it's like obviously, especially during COVID, like hard to be like a one-person business trying to walk the line between like I need to pay my bills, but also like I'm an artist, and it's weird when all of my customers are also artists.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I know where you're coming from.
Right.
Like me and you, neither of us have a lot of money. We're in this together. Like, I don't want to charge you a lot of money, but also I need to eat.
Yeah.
So like, how are we gonna make this work? But it's like, it's so like rewarding to be part of that, and because everything I do is like 100% handmade.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I have like a laser cutter that so that part's like automated, but I'm programming it. I'm programming all the tools that I use and hand soldering every little thing. That like it means so much to me when I see someone like playing with using the things. It's like I have spent, by the time like one of my controllers arrives in someone's hands, like I have held it for probably 20 hours, between like sanding the like rough pieces of wood to like screwing in the all of the knobs and all of that stuff. It's like it's spent so much time being like hand worked that like
it's your
watching
baby.
someone it's like every single time I'm like sealing up the boxes, like you be safe out there. And it's just it means so much to me every time I like see someone like playing with it. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy that you like it, and like that's like the coolest part of doing something that's on like such a small like one at a time sort of scale. It's so much fun.
That's awesome. I love the idea.
Thanks.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.